Good morning, everyone. If all the council members can take your seats, we'll go ahead and get started with our first meeting of 2026. We'll go ahead and call to order the January 5th, 2026 Neighborhoods Meeting. And we'll start with introductions to my left with Mr. Russell.
Right. Brandon Russell, Council Research.
Mary Stefopoulos, Office of General Counsel.
Phil Peterson, Councilor's Office.
Good morning, Michael Boylan, District 6. Happy New Year.
Randy White, District 12.
Mike Gay, District 2.
Happy New Year. Chris Miller, At-Large Group 5.
Ron Salem, Group 2 at large.
Good morning, Tyrona Clark Murray, District 9.
Nick Howland, At-Large Group 3, just visiting.
Will Lane in District 3, visiting.
All right. Welcome our visiting Vice President and Councilmember Lannon. We'll go ahead and start with our public comment. When you come up to speak, make sure we're speaking in reference to a specific bill that's on our agenda, and you'll be given 3 minutes to express your concerns. First speaker will be Victoria Bronson Nelson. Ms. Vicki, come on down, and you'll be given 3 minutes. If you would, state your name and address, or just say it's on record. Go ahead.
I'll send my address on record. I just want to verify that this is on the here in reference to 20250811 regarding ACPS. Presented by Councilman Arias.
Yes. Go ahead.
So it's on the agenda.
It is on. It's being deferred, but it is on the agenda, so you can go continue.
Because a few people came down to speak and were told it wasn't on the agenda and were turned away. Anyway, I am part of Jacksonville Lost Pets. We have 85,000 people on social media who all work together with veterinarians and local animal volunteers, reuniting lost pets that are throughout our city. And this bill it's changing a lot of things, but one important thing is a 3-day stray hold. We have a major problem here with communication with the shelter. They don't have a direct phone line. They don't respond to emails. The website isn't updated regularly. There's multiple times they don't check for microchips when they should. So generally, we're seeing pets return within 6 or 7 days, not 3 days. A few years ago, we worked really hard to extend it to the 6-day stray hold period that it is now. So it's a big concern that we would just arbitrarily change it without really resolving some major issues down at the shelter. Councilman Arias did have 2 town halls with us. One question I asked was JSO referenced or spoken to about the change with the tethering animals in the shelter? And the JSO officers I spoke to had not been. I know Lieutenant Ricks was instrumental in helping us get an animal cruelty officer 3 years ago. He wasn't aware of it. Changing that tethering, and I don't know if I watched your previous meeting about this. There wasn't a lot of detail, but the shelter for animals right now requires they have a roof over their head, a bowl of water, and regular food. For some reason, we're taking out that Duval County wants to require shelter for animals outside. I know JSO uses those very specific details to issue warrants because most of the time people who have dogs chained up and being abused, they're also part of a bigger crime that's going on in the city. So I just hope that all of you would look way more into this than just listening, and anything you're hearing from Chief Bricker, please fact check what he's saying, because a lot of what was said at the town halls were not fact checked at all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker will be John J. Nooney. Come on down, Mr. Nooney, and let's be specific to the bills on the agenda and state your name and address for the record.
Happy New Year. I am John Philanthropic, Jelly Roll, Intangible, Good Boy, Resiliency Nooney, 8356 Bascom Road, Jacksonville, Florida, City Council District 4, CPAC 3, School Board District 3. President Donald J. Trump, Governor Ron DeSantis, Pardon, Nooney. All right, I will be touching on agenda items. 1, 2024-0966 fines. Agenda item 2, 4, 2025-0838. Special District 5, 2025-0841. That's MOSH. It's not in waterways. 6, 2025-0865. Cha-ching. Okay, how many dollars with this one? Okay, Tiffany Pinkstaff. It's a neighborhoods, finance, but not rules. A settlement agreement dated 3/1/94. Seriously, OGC, the Office of Great Contracts. Hey, you know, we all need to look at Small Market Park on Pottsburg Creek. Yeah, that's a true find next to a FEMA house. Joe Johnson, we're going to get an ECA billboard. All right, number 9, agenda item 9, 2025-0870, 53K, general fund. Okay, now this one we've got Admiral Lannon and Colonel Miller. Okay, we've got, we're going to get a golf cart. And now, is that going to be Army or Navy? I'm saying, you know what? Let's increase this to 100K. We want representation straight across. Kitchen equipment. Okay, you know what? We need a smoker. CIP. Cooking in Pottsburg. Kim Rivers. Call me, girl. Okay, it's finance, but it's not in rules. Okay. Then we've got, okay, I'm just down to a minute. We got plenty of time. Maybe we'll even get a shirt update in. But, okay, 2025-0872, Kids Hope Alliance, 2024-0107, 2024-0325. Number 11, this is a favorite, 2025-0876, this is the Armory. Look up 2013-384 and public access to Hogan's Creek. You know, you know, this is FWC stuff. You know, fishing with creek stuff. You know, we're getting ready to, we're marketing to the world. And it's going to be our waterways. It's tourism. Down to 30-some seconds. Okay, again, you know, this one. Ask before you give it away. Is there public access on Hogan's Creek? I mean, this is a game changer. And so anyway, we got agenda items 15, 16, 19, 20. Okay, I'm down to 10 seconds. Here, the Declaration of Independence. This is the Declaration of Education. I'm submitting this to the record for everyone.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nooney. I'd like to recognize Mr. Bill Delaney has joined us as well, and also Councilman Joe Carlucci with his group in the back. Welcome to Neighborhoods. All right, moving forward, we're going to go ahead and jump to item number 11. For Vice President Howland, can I get a motion and a second on the bill? On 2025-0873, I've got a motion and a second. Councilman, Vice President Howland, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I really appreciate the opportunity to address the body. Hope everyone had a great holiday and Happy New Year to everyone. I, for one, am really happy to be back. I hope everyone else is as well. It's been too long. Any event, this bill, 2025-0873, relates to the $15 million workforce development bill that Councilman Arias ran in the fall and that we passed in December. Recall that $6 million of that was for UNF, and we funded $3 million of that $6 million with TDC funding. That left 3 of the 15 available. So this bill takes that $3 million to address what I think is one of our most pressing priorities as a body, and that's to reduce the budget deficit for next year. I confirmed this morning with the auditors we're sitting on a budget deficit projected of $68 million next year. What this does, by funding a previously authorized grant for Rise Doro in the amount of $3 million, is reduce that $68 million budget deficit to $65 million. So this doesn't prepay anything. It's basically setting aside for DIA $3 million to make that payment next year. Because we know that Rise Doro's payment will happen next year, the completion grant will be triggered, and it will happen next year, and it's exactly $3 million. I chose that to put it, this $3 million against, in order to reduce that budget deficit. So I think it's a financially responsible thing to do. Again, it'll bring our projected budget deficit from next year from 68 million down to 65 million. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. First, we'll go to Councilmember Boylan. You're good? Okay. Dr. Salem.
Thank you, Chair. Wholeheartedly agree with this approach and would like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Clark Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair to Mr. Peterson, I'm sorry to kind of probably catch you off guard, but probably not because you're very thorough. Do you know what that makes our council reserve fund? What's the balance after this is
So through the chair to
appropriated?
Councilmember Clark Murray, this is coming out of the, if you go back early 2025, Councilmember Joe Carlucci introduced a piece of legislation appropriating $45 million out of the self-insurance fund. $30 million was set aside for development along the North Bank, basically from the Main Street Bridge to the old Berkman 2 site. And then the additional $15 million was set aside for universities and workforce training. Through Councilmember Arias's bill, y'all took 12 of that $15 million. So this is the remaining $3 million out of that. The $30 million still stays intact.
Thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Colonel Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also, through the chair, I also certainly agree with this approach. I think it's a great start. I thank Council Vice President Howland for doing this, and I think it sets us on a course to look at our next year's deficit situation and actually start dealing with it now. And any overage that we've garnered from this year, anything we've found, whether it be in the previous designated amount that was put off to the side or any new monies that I've heard there are additional funds that have been located as well. My belief is we ought to apply that to that remaining 65 million after assuming this 3 million goes through and bring that deficit down even further. If I were calling the shots, that's exactly what we would do because it's the fiscally responsible thing to do. But I do want to ask for one clarification. Mr. Peterson, through the chair, Mr. Peterson, and then if Council Vice President Howland would like to chime in, you had said that that $30 million that was set aside, originally $45 million, that 30 was for development on the North Bank, and you said the area, but was that how that was stated? I think there was an amendment by Council Vice President Howland that it wasn't just for that purpose. It could be for other purposes as well. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councilmember Miller, you're correct. The language including but not limited to was added. So with the intent being for that purpose, but with 13 votes, it could be used for any other purpose.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, Chief White.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Through the chair, just add me as a co-sponsor, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have no other speakers in the queue. Please add me as a co-sponsor as well. And with that, we'll open the ballot and cast your vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays.
All right, by your action, you've approved 2025-0873.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the committee.
Thank you. All right, next item, we'll go to item number 9. Can I get a motion and a second on 2025-0870? All right, I've got a motion and a second on the amendment. Admiral Lannon.
Thank you, Chair. I'll address that first before I get accused of stolen valor. I was not an admiral, no surprise, but I was a lieutenant commander. I made that in the reserves. So, again, don't want Mr. Nooney to run with some fake accusations that I'm claiming a higher rank than what I really was. So to make this quick, this is essentially a refiling of Bill 2024-0949, which was approved last year. It was my council's strategic priority funding. If you recall, we all got about $150,000
I took half and I used it on an initiative that Councilmember Miller was leading, which was also a veterans initiative for downtown. And then I took $71,000 for some uses within the Military and Veterans Resource Center at the University of North Florida, which is in my district. Took a while to finalize everything, but by the time everything was finalized, the actual cost has actually been reduced from $71,000 down to $53,000. The funding source is the reserves. For those on finance with me, through the chair to Councilmember Salem, Councilmember Howland, I mentioned in our last Finance Committee meeting in September, that was the meeting where we had a lot of $5,000 bills. We had a lot of bills being filed just as carryover funding. I said, look, I'm going to need carryover funding, but there's going to be a grant sheet change as well. Rather than make OGC and our staff do two separate pieces of legislation, I'm finalizing the grant sheet. I'm going to let it fall to the reserves. We're still about $20,000 better off than we thought we would because my new cost is $53,000 instead of the $71,000 that the original bill was. So I hope you support this. I'll stand by for questions, but the actual substance of the four different items that Mr. Nooney actually said a couple of has not changed. And for those of you that don't know, the University of North Florida, they don't just use the phrase veterans, they use military connected student, and there's about 2,000 of the 17,000 or so students at any point in time that are military connected students here in Northeast Florida. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me go to Mr. Peterson on the amendment to.
Through the chair to the committee, the amendment just attaches a revised Exhibit 2, which is the term sheet, to correct the budget schedule. There was a categorization of expenses that the grants division requested be made, and so just making a small modification doesn't change the overall purpose of the grant agreement.
All right, thank you. Dr. Salem?
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair to Councilmember Lane, and do you have any plans for the $20,000 left, or do you intend to leave that in the reserves?
Through the chair to Councilmember Salem, it is going to my second favorite initiative, which is the general fund.
Fantastic. Glad to hear. Please add me as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Clark Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair to Councilmember Lane, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So this is part of your strategic funding, and then you allowed your strategic funding to go to general reserves, and that's how you're able to not, that's why there isn't any language regarding strategic initiative, just the general fund.
Through the chair to Councilwoman Clark Murray, and Mr. Peterson may jump in here, but essentially the money had been appropriated. If you recall, a number of council members, including yourself, I believe on one, had a bill filed to allow for carryover funding of the council strategic initiative money. I knew that in addition to needing carryover money, I was also going to have a change in the grant sheet. So rather than just doing a bill that allowed for carryover funding, then coming back for a change in grant sheet, I said, hey, we're talking about $50,000 here. We're already coming out ahead because instead of spending 70, it's going to be 50. Let's let it fall to the reserves, avoid the duplicate pieces of legislation, and then I'll come back when everything is ready. It's ready now, so it's going from the reserves back above the line appropriated to this initiative.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Through the chair, Mr. Peterson, did you want to chime in?
No, ma'am. I think Councilmember Lane described that accurately.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank everyone. So I have no more speakers on the amendment. I've got a motion and a second. All in favor say yay. Yay. Any opposed? Likewise, none. The amendment carries. Can I get a motion and a second on the bill as amended? Second. I've got a motion and a second on the bill as amended. No other speakers in the queue. Open the ballot and record your vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays.
All right, that with your vote, you approve 2025-0870. Thank you, Councilmember Lannon, for attending. All right, that takes us back to the beginning of our agenda. And starting at item number 1, 2024-0966 is deferred at the request of Council President Carrico. Item number 2, 2025-0361 is deferred at the request of Councilmember White. Item number 3, 2025-0811 is deferred at the request of Councilmember Arias. Item number 4, 2025-0838. Can I get a motion and a second on the withdrawal? Second. I've got a motion and a second on the withdrawal. No speakers in the queue. Open the ballot and record your vote.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, by your action, you have approved to withdraw 2025-0838. Next, item number 5, 2025-0841 is deferred at the request of Mosh. Item number 6, 2025-0865 is, I get a motion and a second on the amendment. I've got a motion, I'm sorry, on the bill. I've got a motion and a second on the bill. No discussion. Open the ballot and record your vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays.
By your action, you approve 2025-0865. Next, item number 7, 2025-0866. Can I get a motion on the amendment? I've got a motion and a second on the amendment. Ms. Clark Murray, you're recognized. All right. No speakers on the amendment. All in favor, say yea. Yea. Any opposed likewise? Amendment carries. Can I get a motion and a second on the bill as amended? I've got a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Ms. Clark Murray, you're recognized.
Is there anyone here from the planning department? Thank you, Ms. Parola, if you would come forward.
Would you like an overview of the bill?
Just go ahead and introduce yourself, give your information.
Oh, Helena Parola, Director of the Planning Department.
Thank you. So my only concern with the bill is probably a more of a common sense type of concern as opposed to the bill itself. I just wanted some language added to the bill to Ms. Stefopoulos as well in regards to the sign. So there are several areas where it discusses the signs themselves. And so I would like to see also where there's a size, where the word size is placed into this bill. Because I think we have, restaurants have signs, but if the signs aren't noticeable, then what's the point? Because it's not communicating the information that patrons who have their pets and patrons who aren't, who need to know that there are pets in that area. So my only concern, once again, is just to add the language of signs to the bill. So I'm looking at page 3, paragraph 9. It says sign or signs, and just to add some language in regards to the size, so that the planning department will also dictate the size of the signs, letting the let me just give you an example so everyone will understand what I'm talking about here. It says, you can look at page 4 for those of you who have the bill. Page 4, paragraph 10, a sign or signs will be posted in a manner and place as determined by the local permitting authority that places the public on notice that the designated outdoor area is available for the use of patrons and patrons' dogs. So it just to add the sign and size will be something that the planning department dictates as well. And it's noted or mentioned in several areas of the bill. So just to indicate that the planning department also has the authority to determine the size, where the signs, not necessarily where the signs go, but the signs and the size of the signs.
I think right now what the planning department would want to see for the size and signs would be consistent with the Florida statute. Mm-hmm. And I'll have to find exactly where it is, but I think it was 8.5 by 11.
That's great, because I was hoping that it would be no smaller than 8 by 10.
Okay, I will look through the statute and see exactly if it limits a sign or if it states a sign size, but I think 8.5 by 11 is a reasonable size to request for the sign size. No, okay, so there is, in the Florida statute, there is no size requirement for the sign. So if you wanted to add that, we would have to add that to our ordinance
Okay. So
requirements.
Through the chair to Mr. Stefopoulos, how does that sound to you in regards to adding actual size to this, adding size to this language, to the language in this particular bill?
Through the chair to Councilmember Clark Murray, I think that that's something that you can do. I'm not aware that there's anything in the statute that would preclude that, and Ms. Hartung from our office who worked on this legislation is confirming that by nodding from the audience. So what I would suggest is you could do it one of two ways. You could leave the authorization to the planning department to determine an appropriate size and make that part of their application process and administrative aspect of processing these, or you can dictate the size of the sign. Sometimes, though, when you dictate the size of the sign, if there's exceptions or reasons that they might have to deviate for one reason or another, you might have locked them into something that they wouldn't be able to comply with necessarily, depending on the circumstances. But I think you could do it either way.
Okay. Thank you for that. So, Ms. Parola, I'm going to leave it up to your office, but I definitely want the language in regards to the size added to this bill, because I think, once again, it's important. It's not about anyone having a fear of dogs, but just to let the patrons know. And so I think that helps also with the legal aspect, because if you require a sign, but the sign is so small that no one notices it, I think one of the things about, in regards to if there's any type of legal issue, like, is it visible, is it obvious? And I think there's one of the, not necessarily that language, but I think there's like, should you have known, should they have known to have posted it in a certain place and at a certain size is important.
Understood. We have an application process that kind of outlines exactly what the applicant needs to do as far as providing to us where the outdoor dining will occur,
Right.
And we could add that as a point on the application, so they're aware that those signs need to be posted visibly and 8.5 by 11,
Okay.
at least.
Yes, that would be great. And if you would send that electronic copy to my office, I will greatly appreciate it.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you.
Through the chair to Councilmember Clark Murray, so that would need to be an amendment that you would take up. So it sounds like she's making a motion that there were a couple of locations I took note of that you wanted that language, that the planning department would also determine as part of its permitting process the size of the signs, and add that language to the bill and those two locations that you mentioned. And so if that's the motion that you're making, Councilmember Clark Murray, you would just need to get a second on that. Okay.
All right, we've got. Okay.
Yes.
So we've got a motion and a second on the Clark Murray amendment. Any discussion?
Yes.
On the amendment? Okay, Dr. Salem.
Thank you, Chair. I have concerns about this. I frequently eat out with my grandkids, some of which are very, very young, and I would not want a dog near us under those circumstances. I would be fearful of what might happen. And if I knew ahead of time that was a possibility, I would not eat on that patio. So to me, it's not just the size of the sign, it's the lettering on the sign. I want to make sure that it's very visible to families that may have young children or others that just don't want to eat in the same area as a dog. Know that there might not be a dog out there when they sit down, but one could come in while they're there. So I don't know what that lettering should be, but 8.5 by 11 seems very small to me as the size of the sign. In order to have, does it specify? And I apologize, what the sign says?
It does not.
Okay, I'd like to. Yeah, I'd like maybe before rules, or we could do it here. Some language that indicates to people that are coming into that area that pets are allowed to come into this area and eat, or not eat, but some language that's very specific. So that I would know that I'm not going to eat out there because a dog may come in after I sit down. Does that make sense?
Through the chair to Councilmember Salem, yes, that makes sense. I've also called up Ms. Hartung, who worked on this legislation. She's with the Office of General Counsel, and she may be able to relay kind of what the statute provides, but you certainly have leeway within the statute to address these concerns that you're raising.
Please. Do you have some suggested language?
Laura Hartung, Office of General Counsel. So it is specific as to what the sign needs to say. What the sign needs to say is the statutory rules that are laid out in 509-233, which are, they start on the bottom of page 2, subsection C. Each of the enumerated rules would be what the sign needs to contain, and it is a rather long list.
Well, that's my concern. I want something that says that a pet, not just the rules itself, but to alert a family that a pet may be coming out there to eat. Large letters of some sort. You can have the rules below that, but I want some notification to the families that that pet may be coming out there after they sit down, if they do sit down in that area.
And to be clear, a warning that dogs are allowed on the patio at this establishment is not part of what the signage would require currently.
Okay, well, we need to add that, I think.
Through the chair to Councilmember Salem, maybe you indicated as you stated this is going to rules. If you would give us leave to work with the planning department to try to address, legible, clearly visible, size, maybe these are some things we can try to iron out to give you all some thoughts for the rule. And I apologize that it won't be back here unless you wanted to defer it and have it come back next cycle so we could work through that for the neighborhoods committee. But the other option is we could get it together for the rules this afternoon and see if we can make some recommendations for the consideration of that committee.
I'm happy to go to rules. I'm in rules, so I'll make sure it's then I feel comfortable with it. If you're okay with it, Councilmember Clark Murray, to allow me to carry the ball, so to speak.
Through the chair to Councilmember Salem, of course, that's fine with me. Because once again, I think the issue that I have, and it's not a negative. I'm not against pets being able to eat with their owners outdoors. I don't have an issue with that. But once again, I want the signs to be very, very visible to those who will bring their pets and those who are, just like Councilmember Salem mentioned, those who may be eating there or may want to eat there, so that they are aware that there are pets in that area.
I would just point out for your consideration, Councilmember Clark Murray, and also for Councilmember Salem, there is a provision in the state statute that says a sign or signs shall be posted in a manner and place as determined by the local permitting authority, which would be the planning department in this case, that places the public on notice that the designated outdoor area is available for the use of patrons and patrons' dogs. So I don't know if you're thinking, Councilmember Salem, and going into rules, you want to dictate specific language, or you just want to make sure it's clearly legible and visible and you're looking at size and that kind of thing versus dictating the specific language of what the sign must include. I just want to make sure when we come back, we're kind of giving you the level of detail you'd be looking for.
All right, Councilman Salem.
Yeah, I'll defer to
yes, I
Salem.
agree with what you just said. I'm not here to dictate the exact language, but I want it to be very clear to the family that a dog, this is specific to a dog, correct? No other pet. Okay. That a dog may be coming into that area at a table right next to them, so you're sitting at your own risk, so to speak.
And through the chair to Councilmembers Salem and Clark Murray, one of the things we might be able to do is work with the Parks Department. They post a lot of signage that has to be clearly visible to patrons of the parks, and maybe we can work with them to see if they have a standardized sign size and font that might be appropriate or applicable that we could use here to keep it kind of normalized to other signage in the city.
And again, I'm not against the dogs. To me, this is a safety issue for young children that could do something and provoke a dog. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, you all can still proceed on the Clark-Murray amendment if you want. That was kind of just very flexible, minimal language that was going into the bill. Or if Ms. Clark-Murray, if you want to withdraw it and allow it to come back to rules, that's entirely up to the committee and to you, Ms. Clark-Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Popoulos, through the chair. Now, I would like my amendment to go ahead and, I think it was moved and seconded. We're having a discussion, so then we can vote on it now.
All right, so the amendment on the floor is the Clark-Murray amendment. So I've got a motion and a second on it. Just to add a little bit to that is, do we want to consider go ahead and putting, I think the real intent of what we're trying to do is make sure it's like 2-inch letters that's legible. And so if you wanted to add that to that now to say, to be inclusive of a minimum of 2-inch letters, then that already gives some groundwork as it moves forward.
To the chair. So I understand your concern, and I think that is more in line with Councilmember Salem's concern, which is what they're going to work out in rules tomorrow or before rules tomorrow. I'm more concerned about the actual size of the sign itself. And so my amendment deals with the size of the sign itself. And then, of course, the lettering size would have to, of course, fit within that size. I would like to, once again, have the sign no smaller than what the statute states, which is 8 by 11, which is a decent sized sign. Or I'm sorry, there is no size according to the statute. But I don't want the sign to be any smaller than 8 by 10, which is what I stated.
All right, thank you. So with that, we've got a motion and a second on the Clark-Murray amendment. All in favor say yay.
Yay.
Any opposed? None. So the amendment carries. So I've got a motion and a second.
If
on
we
the
could
bill
roll those amendments together, would that be okay?
as twice amended, and we'll roll them up.
Yeah, so you would just, if you authorize rolling up, then it just needs to be moved as amended.
Right, we'll roll it up, and so I've got a motion and a second on the bill as amended. So, but before I move forward, I neglected to get Mr. Peterson to explain the original amendment. Just for the record, if you could go ahead and interject that into it.
Sure. Through the chair of the committee, the original amendment would just include a provision that's also included in the Florida statutes. Our ordinance code mirrors the Florida statutes for everything except for this one component, that the Planning and Development Department would provide the state with copies of all approved applications and permits that are issued. And then also corrects various scriveners.
All right, thank you for that. And with that, so I've got a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Open the ballot and record your vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays.
All right, thank you. By your action, you've approved 2025-0866 as amended. Next. Yes, Clark Murray, go ahead.
I forgot that we have a completely different schedule now, and then rules is this afternoon as opposed to tomorrow. So in rules this afternoon. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next item, number 8, 2025-0868. Can I get a motion on the bill? I've got a motion and a second on the bill. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Murray.
All right, thank you, Chair. So to the committee members, I've given you a flyer. If you recall, a few months ago, you voted to approve this particular program, which is a program within a program that is in the Robinson's Addition community, which is in District 9. And essentially what this bill does is that it appropriates $25,000 from my strategic initiative funds, which were carried over from the previous budget, so that this program, the students can have computers to use to help them, of course, with their work, to help them with perhaps some job type of training. So that is the purpose behind the appropriation for $25,000 for the purchase of computers. And the Parks Department will have oversight over the computers, and they already have, there's typically the city has an entity or business that already won the bid, so that they'll just contract with them in order to purchase the computers. And if there are any additional questions, I will take them, but I imagine that there aren't very many.
All right, I don't see any other speakers in the queue. Let's open the ballot and record your vote. There it is.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, by your action, you've approved 2025-0868. Item number 9, we've already taken action on. Item number 10, 2025-0872 will be deferred at the request of Dr. Salem. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Dr. Salem.
Thank you, Chair. This bill is going to require some significant discussion from the General Counsel as well as our own counsel, Jason Teal. I had intended to defer it, and I even heard this morning that Mr. Fackler was going to have trouble getting here today due to a family situation. So I just want to have ample time to have a good discussion, and I thought having it today after a 3-week break was not the way to do it. So we'll definitely take it up in 2 weeks. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Boland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to Council Member Salem, could you give us some understanding of the impetus for this bill? I mean, been on this council 6.5 years, and all of a sudden we decided we want to change some process here. Could you explain to me why you think this is important at this time?
Well, I think it's important that the council have the ability to make appointments to boards and or commissions that they establish. And we do have the ability of confirming these appointments, but I do think we should have input into selection of that. And there's some question of authority, executive authority versus council authority. And those were, and we went through this to some extent with the Meridian contract a year or so ago, and we went through it with the Jacksonville Journey appointments, if you recall. And I'd like to see a very clear-cut, from my perspective, understanding of what is the council's authority and what is the mayor's authority in making these appointments.
Through the chair, Councilman Salem, I guess one of the concerns I have in the process is the ability to make sure we have a fully funded or a fully seated board in these situations. Putting these kind of limitations on it makes that ever more challenging for us to get a full complement of membership on these boards. I'd like to see that addressed as part of this legislation going forward.
All right, and a lot of this, I think, is what is why Dr. Salem has requested to have it deferred so we can have these lengthy conversations. Mr. Delaney, if you want to briefly comment.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Very briefly, through the chair to the body, while we welcome the discussion, we believe that this is a clear-cut issue. This is the purview of the mayor, and we will defend that vigorously. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So that is being deferred, so we're not going to deal with that today. Item number 11. Item number 11, we've already taken action on. Item number 12, 2025-0876. Can I get a motion on the substitute? Second. I've got a motion and a second on the substitute. Mr. Peterson.
Yes, sir. Through the chair to the committee, the substitute is just in lieu of a very long amendment. First, it would revise the parcel size to approximately 2.49 acres. That's down from approximately 2.82 acres. Revises the in-progress assessed value of the property to $3,217,874.20. Revises the purchase price to $2,547,513.60. That is based on a previously negotiated per acre rate. clarifies that $496,537.10 of the purchase price will be used to repay the city for CDBG funding that was previously dispersed to the buyer. Include a waiver of Ordinance Code Section 122-421I to allow a portion of the purchase price to refund the CDBG loan instead of being fully deposited into the Jack's Recreational Environmental Land Acquisition Capital Projects Fund. Striking language in Section 1 regarding a potential need for the property. When the bill was filed, real estate had not heard back from all city agencies. They since have, and no one has a need for the property. Item 7, attaching a revised Exhibit 2, which is the real estate certificate, once again correcting the parcel size, the in-progress assessed value, and then that it was circulated to all entities and there was no need. Placing a revised purchase and sale agreement on file to reflect that reduced parcel size and the purchase price, and to correct various scriveners throughout the bill.
All right, Dr. Miller on the substitute.
How about that? I'm a doctor.
Doctor.
I appreciate that.
Admiral.
Man, we got admirals and doctors, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure when the appropriate time is, but through the chair, I'd like to make an amendment that syncs with the auditor's recommended amendment. There are some very good discussion points here, and I want to make sure we address those before this moves forward.
To the chair. So I would recommend you do the technical amendments that are part of the substitute that's been moved, and then you can move that auditor recommended amendment, and then if it's approved, we can roll it into the substitute before you move the bill.
All right, thank you. So we've got a motion and a second on the substitute. No other discussion. All in favor say yay. Yay. Any opposed? Likewise, none. So the substitute carries. So can I get a motion and a second on the bill as substituted? I've got a motion and a second on the bill. Colonel Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, I would like to make an amendment that is in sync with the auditor's recommended amendment, include prohibition on the transfer of the parcel to an entity exempt from paying ad valorem taxes.
I've got a motion and a second on the amendment. I would like Mr. Peterson to go ahead and give the auditor's recommended amendment.
Through the chair to the committee, yes, sir. So this bill proposes to transfer the property to a taxable entity. However, they have I don't know if I'm going to partner or parent company who is a tax exempt organization. And so our, not fear, but consideration was that they could buy this property from the city, it would become taxable, but all they would do is transfer it to that other organization, and then the city would be receiving no taxes on it. So that's the reason for our recommended amendment, because part of the discussion has been this will generate taxes for the city on this property.
Okay, thank you. So, Dr. Salem, on this amendment. Okay, all right, thank you. So, no other discussion on this amendment. All in favor, say yay. Yay. Any opposed likewise? And we can roll this up into one amendment to the substitute. So, can I get a motion and a second on the bill as substituted? Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Dr. Salem, you recognize.
Thank you, Chair. The third amendment's the one that I'm concerned about, and I cannot understand why the buyer is not returning that roughly $500,000 in CDBG funding. Why are we reducing the price of the acquisition to account for that? I'm not sure who can speak to that. But if it's no longer a CDBG eligible use, why aren't they returning it so we could use it for someone else? If whoever can address that, is that you, Mr. Randolph, or is that OGC, or who?
Hi, good morning. Travis Jeffrey, Housing Community Development Division. Through the chair to Councilman Salem. So we're not reducing the acquisition price. Basically, that 2.4, 2.9, what is it? 2.54. So the $496,000 will just, instead of it going into that Jacksonville Recreational Fund, it'll actually go back into the CDBG fund that we will use for public facility improvements, street resurfacing, sidewalk repairs, parks, or public works.
No, but through the chair, if I can, the purchase price is $2,547,513.60.
Correct.
Why aren't they paying, if that's the purchase price, why aren't they paying that? And then in addition to that, returning the CDBG money is my question.
Through the chair, Ed Randolph, OED. Just to give you a little back, so we've been working with this developer for about 5 years now, and originally the project included an adjacent parcel to the Armory parcel, and it's an exciting project. They're trying to turn this property into a food hall, a brewery, artist makerspace, similar to what you see in Dallas and Seattle and other cities, these older Armory buildings. But with that, over the last 2 years, we've been revising the design for the future Emerald Trail extension over there adjacent to the Elmery property. And that's now brought us to a point where the adjacent parcel that the developer was first planning to do affordable housing, in addition to the renovation of the Armory building, has now been taken off the table. So in good faith, we've been working with them. They've spent a lot of money on design over the last 5 years. COVID hit. That was one issue that kind of put them in the position they're in now. But moving along here, they've now been told that they can't do an affordable housing element to the project adjacent to this Armory site. So in good faith, originally we gave them the $500,000 to go ahead and shore up the roof on the building, put in security cameras and other things, because there was a lot of homeless folks living in there, and the building was in disrepair. So with that, coming full circle here, we're now just looking to give them the Armory proper, and now we're not allowing them to do the adjacent parcel development with affordable housing. So really, we're looking, really to help them out in that originally the deal did include affordable housing, but it does not anymore. So the project is not going to be as lucrative to them as it originally was described back in 2020 when they won the RFP.
So through the chair to Mr. Randolph, if I understand what you're saying, you're essentially reducing the purchase price by $500,000 because of the lack of affordable housing to the property adjacent to it.
Through the chair to Councilman Salem, yes. And the building needs a minimum of $15 million, it's estimated, in renovations for asbestos, lead paint. The property floods quite often. So there are a whole host of things that the developer's going to have to go in there, and they're going to be saddled with those costs. Again, the affordable housing element has now been taken off. There was a profit element there that is no longer there. So they're walking into this building with a minimum of $15 million in just asbestos abatement, lead paint abatement, flooding issues. So really, they're coming into a project that is not going to be as profitable as originally planned.
This is, through the chair, this is an historic property, correct?
That is correct.
So we have to work some way. This property is not going anywhere. Because it's historic, it's going to be there forever, and we need to find a way to hopefully make it a productive site. Is that accurate?
Through the chair to Councilman Salem, that's correct.
Unless you were to somehow take away the historic designation, which I assume would be very, very difficult. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. I guess you've answered my questions, but I would sure like to see them pay 2.5, but I'll wait for the other committee members to weigh in if they'd like to. Thank you.
All right, so you had mentioned about adding an amendment, so you're not adding an amendment right now? Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, so now we're on the bill as substituted. Councilmember Boland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to kind of follow up on Councilman Salem's. My concern is very much the same. The issue, in effect, is that the assessed value of the property is $3.2 million. In effect, they're paying $2 million for this. I love the idea of the project. Don't get me wrong. I think it's important for us to do that. But we need to recognize the fact that they're paying $2 million for a piece of property that we have determined is $3.2 million in value. Is that correct, Mr. Randolph?
Through the chair to Councilman Boylan, yes, but that does not take into account all the remediation costs. Again,
Understood.
So they walked into this knowing this 5 years ago, all the remediation costs, but they looked at it as being getting a profit from the affordable housing parcel adjacent to this site. That is no longer in the equation because the Emerald Trail project will now require us to expand the Hogan's Creek footprint there because of the flooding. So the building floods, it's got asbestos, it's got lead paint, all those things. So that was part of the overall, thrust of their project was getting some sort of profit from the affordable housing. Now that we've taken that off the table,
Understood.
They're walking into a $15 million minimum just to get the building.
So that speaks to my second concern, the viability of them being successful in getting this project to the finish line. Where's your confidence level in determining? We see a lot of these kind of things, and we put money at it, we throw money at it, and say, yeah, we want to help, and then it dies on the vine. It's died on the vine once already. Can you help me understand why we think this is going to be a successful path forward?
Sure. Through the chair to Councilman Boyle. Well, at this point, I think the property is set dormant for about 10 years now. And again, with all those costs that we would need to get the building just up to snuff as it relates to from an environmental standpoint, those are all upfront costs that we're just not willing to bear at this point. So again, there is an element of risk here, but we know that they've got a great team. They put a great team together in the way of consultants and other design plans. So we feel confident that they're going to go ahead and put forth a good project and renovate the building and help to the east side.
As it happens, I spent the last week in Nashville and saw some of the huge and great locations of their cafeteria, food, as you call it, markets there. And my concern is the viability of this location. It seems to be not central for that kind of use. Can you help me understand why you guys think that it is?
Sure, through the chair. Well, I think it's not going to be tomorrow or next year or the following year. I think as the east side gets revitalized, as downtown gets revitalized, I think 5, 6+ years from now, we're going to see this as a key element to creating energy in that part of downtown. So again, that's right. It's right off of Market Street there at the the edge of Springfield. Again, the east side revitalization efforts. So collectively, we see this as being a long-term play and a great addition to the neighborhood.
And to make clear, I'm very much supportive of the project. I just want to make sure it gets done and recognize that we are, taking an assessed value piece of property and in essence selling it for $2 million. That's all.
All right. So we have no other speakers in the queue. I'll weigh in a few concerns that. Go ahead. Okay, you're not on. Now you're showing up. All right. You got the floor.
All right, thank you, Chair. So my concern is with the funds not going to the Jacksonville Recreational and Environmental Land Acquisition Capital Projects Fund. Is there a reason why, and how does that impact that fund? And that's not to you, Mr. Randolph, that's to Travis. If you could just explain the rationale. And I did hear through the chair, I did hear where you were talking about how it's going to be used, but how does it impact that fund, if any impact?
Through the chair, so I'm not really sure how it will impact that fund other than, not having the additional funding. I do believe that the CDBG funds can be used almost for the same thing that fund uses its funds as well. The only thing is we have to target low-income areas with the funds for the CDBG. Mm-hmm. Again, street resurfacing, sidewalk repairs, park improvements, library improvements, anything that we can improve within a low-income census tract is eligible through the CDBG. And so I think a lot of the same uses that the capital or that Jacksonville Recreation Fund has can be used through CDBG.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to know because I just thought it was a little strange that it wasn't going back to that fund, and I wanted to know if it has. But based upon what you're saying, it's not going to have many impacts. It has pretty much the same purpose, but more you can use it. It's more, the dollars are more flexible in the fund where the fund, the CBG fund, as opposed to the environmental land fund?
I think both of them have some regulations tied to it, but again, I think they can be used for relatively the same thing. Again, at closing, we'll receive $2.5 million. $2 million of it will go into that Jacksonville Recreational Fund, and $500,000 will go over to the CDBG. And that way we can close out that activity per se, kind of cleans that up, and then we can use those funds as needed.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Miss Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before you all take any action on the bill, I spoke with Mr. Randolph prior to the meeting, and I think there was one additional request that they received from the proposed buyer, and he was going to present that. It has to do with their ability, restrictions on their ability to sell the property, and so I would just ask Mr. Chair if you would allow him to give you all that information and submit that request.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Randolph.
Yeah, through the chair to the body. Basically the developers asked that if for some reason they go into foreclosure, their lender is not precluded from actually selling the property to another entity within that 3-year time window, within any, at any point. But basically, that's a request they've made to us. Which,
Mr. Peterson.
Through the chair. So I believe Mr. Randolph is addressing discussion point number 1, which relates to this entity being able to sell or transfer the property. I'm sorry, number 2. Being able to sell or transfer the property immediately and make a profit off the city. Since we don't have a true appraisal of the property, we're going off of the property appraiser's assessment. And so if the committee wanted to adopt, I believe he said a 3-year window, we would need to add that via an amendment that they couldn't sell or transfer it within a 3-year time period, except for if they went into a foreclosure. It sounded like that would enable their lender to do so. That's another protection that would benefit the city.
All right. Ms. Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair to Mr. Peterson, is there a reason why the 3 years are chosen as opposed to 5, 10?
Through the chair to Councilor Clark-Murray, well, currently there's nothing. So literally they could buy the building tomorrow and turn around and already have another buyer lined up, and there's nothing that prohibits that. The 3 years, I believe, is a suggestion from Mr. Randolph. I think any time period is better than nothing that we have now, but of course you could negotiate that and determine what time period you wanted to add on that.
Okay, thank you for that. Through the chair to Mr. Randolph, why 3 years? And good morning to you.
through the chair to the councilwoman, we really just thought that was a suitable amount of time. I do have the developer here. I don't know, one of the principals, Don Patterson, if you wanted to speak to that, I don't know.
Some of the things that concern me is that, first of all, we don't know the true value. We just have the value based on what's in the property appraiser's basically website. So we don't know what the true value is. So we don't know whether or not the city would take a loss if you were to decide to sell the the property. And so that does concern me greatly. And then 3 years, if I recall correctly, this has been since maybe at least 22, because I recall reading the entire proposal to sell the building and all of the aspects, the housing aspect, this aspect that we're talking about now. So it was supposed to be just basically a multi-purpose type of bill and multi-purpose type of project that you were working on. So why 3 years? Because right now we're looking at 22, this is 26, we're looking at that's almost 4 years. So what will change within the 3 years? Do you think that it will, I know I'm asking multiple questions and you can address multiple questions, answer those questions, but do you think you will have completed the project within 3 years?
Good morning, council members. Don Patterson, Riva Development, also managing member for Armory Redevelopment Associates, LLC. Address is 1505 North Market Street, Jacksonville, 32204. Lots of questions there, and I will, forgive me, I may have to come
You
back.
speak a little closer to the microphone.
I may have to come back and answer some of the questions if I missed them. Okay.
That's fine.
So let's start with 3 years. Currently, the property value is based on the county appraiser's information back in October 2020. At that time, we went to contract, and with the idea that over a period of time there would be a 1% escalator. And so the number that we come up with now is based on, a 5-year period roughly. And so I hope that answers the question how we got to that number. All right. We truly believe that within 3 years, significant improvements will have been made to the building, allowing the value of the building to increase. So it's to our benefit and it's to the city's benefit as well. But we don't intend to sell the property in less than 3 years. And quite honestly, we don't intend to sell the property for a considerable amount of time. We are a 501c3 not-for-profit. We're about community first. It's about putting in place a space that's been vacant for better than 15 years is my count, with the idea that we're able to create as many as 225 jobs for this particular improvement or this particular project. So I can say that as an organization, we're fully committed to a long-term endeavor here. And so 3 years is, I think it's a good number because in 3 years, we will have done a significant amount of improvements, as I mentioned earlier, and it just becomes a much smarter project at that point. I hope I've answered your question.
It does, and it does specifically and with more detail. And so I will just reemphasize, you said that there is no intention to sell the building prior to you achieving the purpose for purchasing the building.
Correct. Right. And one other thing to add, too, is a part of our capital stack, we have the benefit of a number of tax credit programs that are associated with this. First is the historic tax credit program, which requires that the building maintains compliance as far as historic preservation is concerned for a period of no less than 5 years. And then the second component that is also a tax credit program, which is new market tax credits, we're required to maintain compliance with those funds for a period of 7 years. So in addition to us being a community development organization, the requirements that we have by way of the tax credit programs, we can't imagine having a desire to sell the property any sooner than 3 years or 5 years for that matter.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Dr. Salem, you were in the queue. Okay. Ms. Mary.
So, Mr. Chair, to the extent that there's an interest to add this 3-year condition, someone would need to move that as an amendment, and you would need to get a second. If you want that auditor recommended amendment that was previously adopted by the committee that can't be transferred to any entity that's exempt from paying non-ad valorem taxes, if you want that to also be sure to apply to the lender within that 3-year period, because as we discussed, the amendment is adding a condition that they can't transfer or sell the property for 3 years, but that a lender in the instance of a foreclosure would not have that same 3-year restriction, but you may still want to apply to the lender that they have a condition that they can't transfer it to any entity that's exempt from non-ad valorem taxes as part of that amendment.
All right, thank you. So I've got a motion and a second on this. Ms. Murray, on the amendment. Go ahead.
Chair, I just realized that my microphone was not on when I said so moved, so just so moved.
Right. So I've got you in the queue still. So okay, you're up. So we've got a motion and a second on that amendment. Ms. Mayor, Mr. Peterson, can y'all clarify exactly what is in this amendment?
Through to the chair, so I believe that we would add to the legislation or the contracts attached to the legislation a condition that the purchaser could not transfer or sell the property for a minimum of 3 years. Mr. Randolph, I don't know if that was from the date of closing or when that 3-year clock would begin. You might want to clarify that. With the exception that within that 3-year period, if the property is foreclosed on, a lender would be able to transfer or sell it, but applying that same condition from the auditor's recommended amendment that in any case, they can't transfer or sell it to an entity that is exempt from non-ad valorem taxes. But Mr. Randolph, I would appreciate clarification, if I could, Mr. Chair, on when that 3-year clock starts.
Sure. Through the chair to Mary, yes, that would be 3 years from the closing of on the property.
All right. Any other discussion on the amendment? And I'd like to recognize Councilman Amaro has joined us. So I don't see any other speakers in the queue on the amendment. I've got a motion and a second. All in favor say yay. Yay. Any opposed likewise? None. So the amendment carries and it'll roll up into the substitute. All right. I've got a motion and a second on the bill as substituted, and Mr. Councilman Amaro, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to Mr. Randolph, I was listening partially in my commute, and Mr. Salem raised a relatively good point. I'm not sure if I heard an explanation to my full satisfaction. In plain English, we're selling the property for 2.5. They're going to use 500 of that to give back to us for a grant that was given to them, and that kind of, I found that kind of troubling. Why will we do that?
Sure. Through the chair to Councilman Amaro, Ed Randolph, OED. I think in the grand scheme of things, they were originally they responded to an RFP that included a whole separate project, which was an affordable housing project adjacent to the Armory site, of which would have been profitable to them. In this instance, we've now taken that property off the table and taken the affordable housing element out of the equation, and now just given them this building, which again, with estimates of at least $15 million in remediation work before they even start to get the building up to snuff to accommodate their future tenants. So we just thought it was fair now that we have to accommodate the future Emerald Trail project. That parcel comes off the table. That's one less profitable element of this project. Now they're coming into this building with a major amount of work to do to bring the city-owned building, and it'll be on the property tax. It'll be taxed. So there are a number of different elements that we looked at overall. But that was really the key thing, was that now taking this profitable element out of the overall original project of where we settled on the price point discussed in the legislation here today.
Thank you, Mr. Randolph. And I know that my colleague to my left also raised the question about the appraisal, and personally, it just gives me heartburn of the type of transaction that it is, and there's a cost of doing business, and if the property is appraised at 3, and to make it amenable for the buyer, then why don't we sell it at 2.9, and they can do that crazy transaction and give us the $5 million, 500,000 from the 2.9 instead of actually property appraised at 3 and we're selling it. In the end, it's going to be for 2.
Through the chair to Councilman, again, this was what we worked on with them. I'm happy to ask the developer again to speak to that specific request. And I'll let them go ahead and address that specific question.
Morning again. Councilman Amaro, could you repeat the question? I want to make sure that I'm crystal clear on this because we've been bouncing a little bit back and forth.
Thank you. Through the chair. My foundation was the the appearance of us selling the property that's appraised at 3 for 2.5 and using 500,000 of that sale price to reimburse the city for the grant. I think the appearance of that just I find somewhat troubling. If I were in your shoes, I'd grab the deal. My question, as we have a fiduciary responsibility to watch out for our tax dollars, why not purchase the property 2.9 and then make that reimbursement, and then you settle it 2.5, which seems to be where a fair price for the property.
All right. Let me start with the idea that we negotiated the price in 2020. It's part of the contract that we had to move forward with a 1% escalator. We signed that agreement not recognizing that the building was going to have $15 million in remediation. We literally went back to the executive director at the time with keys in hand to suggest that we wouldn't be interested. Since that time, we've been able to identify resources that would allow us to do those repairs without affecting the overall cost of the project. So what that means is that we've got equity that will cover the requirement to clean up the building. And so we're comfortable going in with a price that is at 2.5, largely because we're going to be saddled with another $15 million. So the idea of an increased price just really begins to chip away at what the budget has been. I'm sorry, what has been established as a budget. And I suppose if it's a $500,000, over a period of time, we could find a way to be accommodating to that. But at least initially, we believe that the price of $2.5 million is appropriate.
Thank you for your response through the chair. I'm in full support of getting this property off the city tax roll into where it becomes taxable, it becomes something functional and transformative on market and state. I think the potential is there. Again, my thoughts are just trying to protect the city's, my tax dollars, your tax dollars in these kind of transactions. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm against the project. I'm just dealing with the dollars. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Morrow. All right, so we have no other speakers in the queue. So I just want to weigh in myself on this. I've met with Mr. Patterson, and I appreciate all the information that in the discussion that we had on it. Mr. Randolph, if you could come back up. There's been discussion about this $15 million impact now. Was that part of the original negotiation, or was that is a discovery that was done after that we entered into this original agreement?
Through the chair to the chair. So that was part of the original. They knew going into it during their due diligence prior to signing up for the original deal that there was about $15 million that they were going to have to do to abate the asbestos and lead paint and deal with the flooding issues in the basement of the building. So that was known up front. So again, now we've taken the affordable housing element out of the equation. So again, now it's a bigger burden on their overall pro forma to make a profit.
Right, and I think I would just, there was a comment that was just made saying it was after that was discovered, and so I was just wanting to get clarity if that was part of the original. So thank you. So, Councilman Amaro, you hit on the topics of what my concerns were, where there's a gap of basically $1 million that's not really being addressed. That I too want to see this project move forward. It's definitely a historic venue there that this building has been to the community, but my reservation and my concern is the actual selling price of this. So that's where my caution lies, and as this moves forward, I may be able to, in different committees, change my mind. But right now, I'm leaning to a no on this. So that's just where I'm standing, because I'm just not comfortable with the actual non-appraisal sale price that we're moving to. So with that, I've got a motion and a second on the bill as substituted. So we'll open the ballot and record your vote.
Five yeas, one nay.
All right, so by your action, you've approved 2025-0876 as substituted. Next item is our second reading, is 13, 2025-0890. Number 14, 2025-0891. And that takes us to 15, is an emergency 2025-0892. Can I get a motion on emergency? I've got a motion and a second on the emergency. Mr. Peterson.
Yes, sir. Through the chair of the committee, the nature of the emergency is JSO is waiting for authorization to utilize one of these 4 grants. They've received award from the agency, and so they're just wanting to get the dollars put into place as soon as possible.
All right. No other discussion on the emergency. All in favor of the emergency, say yay. Yay. Any opposed likewise? None. So the bill emergency carries. Can I get a motion and a second on the bill 2025-0892 as an emergency? I've got a motion and a second. No speakers in the queue. Open the ballot. Record your vote.
Six yeas, zero nays.
All right, by your action, you've approved 2025-0892 as an emergency. The next items are on second. 2025-0893, 2025-0894, 2025-0896, 2025-0897, 2025-0890, and that concludes our meeting. Any other discussions from the committee? None. We are adjourned.